Hi, everyone. Welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. Let's go back to 1987. The average price of a movie ticket was around $6. The top grossing movie was Three Men and a Baby, but that wasn't the only iconic movie to come from that year. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles was released with John Candy and Steve Martin, and Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey turned into superstars thanks to Dirty Dancing. Curious about what had local MPPs reeling? Check out this next segment.
Oral questions? Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Premier and the Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs and the Minister of Northern Development and Mines, and the Attorney General and the Minister responsible for Native Affairs and the Minister of Colleges and Universities, and in the absence of the Minister for Skills Development, the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations, the Minister for Financial Institutions, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Government Services, the Minister of the Environment, the Chairman of Cabinet, the Minister of Industry, the Minister of Municipal Affairs, and the Minister for Francophone Affairs.
And the question is to which minister?
I have a question for one of the few remaining ministers, and that is for the Treasurer.
The lonely Treasurer.
Yesterday, when questioned by my colleague, the member for Durham York, with regard to the Kimberly-Clark situation, the formerly combative Minister of the Environment, so formerly dedicated to cleaning up the environment and being tough, indicated that he might or might not give some money to Kimberly-Clark to save the 1,600 jobs in Terrace Bay, but he had to wait until he was, quote, assured there was a genuine case of need. Given the fact the minister has now had 3 months to determine that situation, and given the fact that the financial audit of the company clearly shows there is a genuine case of need, why, as Treasurer, has the money not yet been given to Kimberly-Clark and the job
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps for the same reason that it hasn't been given over the past 5 years, when the control order has been in effect and Kimberly-Clark has done nothing discernible to improve the situation. I think everybody in this House agrees that we want the employment opportunities to be maintained and hopefully expanded in Terrace Bay. I believe everybody in this House agrees that Ontario should establish reasonable levels of pollution abatement and see that they are understood, that they are going to be required. And this narrows it down to the very matter that the Honourable Leader of the Opposition has referred to. When there is evidence by independent audit that the company concerned cannot finance the kinds of improvements that our regulations require, then obviously the alternative is for the public treasury to involve itself in some reasonable way. I think it's obvious that that alternative is under active consideration.
Supplementary.
Well, I wish perhaps to correct the record. The Treasurer, like his colleagues, likes to pretend that these circumstances are long-standing and that everything his government fails to do is the result of the previous administration. The fact will show that the control order was put on in 1982 by the previous government. They were given till October 31st, 86. During that period of time, the previous government did in fact offer assistance, financial assistance, to Kimberly-Clark. So when the Treasurer stands up with the response to the supplementary question, which I'm about to put, it would be greatly appreciated if he would perhaps correct the record and confirm that the previous government did in fact offer assistance. Now, my question to the Treasurer is this. It has been 5 years since the control order went on. The previous government did offer financial assistance to the company. There are 1,600 jobs at stake in the small community of Terrace Bay. The audit has now been done The audit has now been done, and the company is saying they cannot afford to do it without government funding. Would the Treasurer perhaps be kind enough, to agree to dedicate a mere 2 weeks of the $400 million surplus he's collected over the last 6 months to devote to this tiny threatened community in Northern Ontario now?
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member is aware that the pollution abatement capital cost for that mill is something in excess of $20 million. I believe he's also aware that many other industries would certainly very properly expect to be involved in a broad program of this nature, and I can only reiterate what I've already said, and that the matter is under active consideration. That the honourable member is aware that we don't earmark specific allocation of resources, even windfall resources, but I can't make it much clearer than saying that the matter is under review, and the Cabinet makes these decisions in conjunction with our colleagues working together in this connection. That the abatement order has been in effect since 1982, the honourable member said. I've just been thinking of it in terms of 5 years, during which time nothing was done by the company in order to effect the move toward reaching the levels that are required under the regulations. It's regrettable that this has occurred over this period of time. Certainly the pollution did not begin with the accession of the Liberal government, and we have been concerned about our policies in this regard because I feel that they have not met the needs that are described in the parameters that are part of this question. I hope there will be an announcement in the near future about this matter, which would be supported on all sides.
Final supplementary.
Let me point out to the Treasurer that the Minister of the Environment, who is absent again today for, the third time in a week, after having been here almost all the time up until now, and the Minister of the Environment is clearly absent for one simple reason. The Minister of the Environment is now caught between his previous tough statements and the reality that time has run out on him. He now must enforce a control order or put the $400 million surplus funds you have up where his tough words are. He now must make the tough choice between enforcing a control order or finding $20 million out of your $400 million surplus to save 1,600 jobs in Kimberly-Clark. When he runs up against his previous strong words and his threats and his promises to be tough, and $20 million from the Treasurer, the Minister of the Environment has no choice but to run and hide from this legislature. Perhaps he, too, is at the courthouse in Ottawa, but he ought to be here saving the jobs of Kimberly-Clark.
Order. Once again, order. Order. I will recess this House for 10 minutes. Final supplementary, Leader of the Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To correct the record, I might, Mr. Speaker, say to the House that My information is not that Kimberly-Clark has done nothing over the past 5 years, but they have now complied with 6 of the 7 items on the control order, and that they've spent over $7 million in the past 5 years on these problems. So the Treasurer's information perhaps was inaccurate. Kimberly has done a great deal. My final question to the Treasurer is this. We do have 1,600 jobs at risk. I know he will acknowledge that. And I know he is aware that the range we're talking about is some $20 million needed by Kimberly-Clark. Given the fact that his Premier has now set up a committee to review this, given the fact that he wants some significant proof of actual need, I wonder how he can justify this process and holding back $20 million to Kimberly-Clark when he in fact gave almost that same amount, i.e. $17.5 million, to the Premier's friend, Mr. Schwartz, to build in Toronto Exploricom without a financial
Treasurer.
audit, without a cabinet committee, without
Order.
going through these long procedures, and without
Order.
any jobs.
The question's been asked.
Treasurer.
Mr. Speaker, the preamble to the honourable member's question that resulted in the brief adjournment was associated with my colleague, the Minister of Health, trying to bring to your attention, sir, that although the Minister of the Environment was here yesterday, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition wasn't. And that's why this kind of an exchange is not particularly productive. I'm sure both gentlemen had important duties to attend to elsewhere. In answer to the question, I would just say again to the Honourable Leader of the Opposition that all the facts he put forward are correct, and I'm glad that he did correct the record, particularly as it pertained to my comments, that 6 of the 7, what do you call them, compliance orders that had been lived up to, so that the company has done some things, that's for sure, and that we feel that we want to be in a position to require that they do the cleanup in a way that is going to be advantageous for the community. It's going to leave the company in a position where it can continue operation, hopefully in the future in a profitable basis, and that the goals of the government and I hope the people of Ontario will be served, and that the environment will be substantially improved.
New question.
Bottom line, the Minister of the Environment is usually
New
here,
question.
except when the heat hits. He's disappeared for 3 days.
Does
My,
the- Order. Order.
17 million for Abe Schwartz
Order.
and nothing.
Would the Honourable... I would remind all members this is question period. Does the Leader of the Opposition have second question? And to which minister?
I have a in the absence of the Premier and the Minister of Northern Development, and in the absence of the Minister of Industry, who surely should be here to speak to this issue, I have a question for the Minister of Labour. I'm sure the Minister of Labour has by now had an opportunity to consider the remarks made by Mr. Peebles of General Motors, indicating there may be 40,000 Canadian jobs lost in the auto industry by the early 1990s. I wonder if the Minister of Labour could tell us specifically what he and his colleagues are doing right now to avert that tragedy.
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the government has, as the honourable member will know, been the leading spokesman in terms of trying to protect the Auto Pact and trying to enhance jobs right here in Ontario. Mr. Speaker, we're very pleased that until this time, that the levels of automotive employment in the last couple of years have been at record highs, and the objective of the government is to maintain as much of that employment as possible within the big three, and indeed to enhance employment and to be able to attract offshore auto companies as they come to Ontario. Clearly on an ongoing basis, the Premier, the Treasurer, Minister of Industry, and indeed all members of Cabinet, particularly those with economic portfolios, take a very careful look at the auto industry, which is so important to Ontario.
Supplementary.
Well, let's, for the sake of your credibility, let's not suggest that you and your colleagues are the leading spokespersons defending the Auto Pact. You're no more committed to the Auto Pact than anyone else is in this legislature. And indeed, the record will show that your colleagues from the Windsor area led the pack in calling for renegotiation when times were tough in the Windsor area.
Your supplementary question?
My supplementary question for the minister is this. It's true. He's talked of attracting new investment in the auto industry. Mr. Peebles, who I would remind you is on the Premier's high-tech fund, has pointed out very specifically that some of that new investment, which came here with $95 million from your government, failed perhaps to get total compliance with the Auto Pact provision. And as a result, you may well get from these companies sourcing outside this country of auto parts which would have to be sourced inside this country if they were one of the big three complying with the Auto Pact. Given that circumstance, could you outline specifically what you, your colleague, the Minister of Industry, the Premier, or the Treasurer have done to ensure that with this new capacity coming into Ontario, you haven't in fact lost jobs in the longer term in the parts sector and in the broader automotive sector?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I'm beginning to understand about that article this morning. Mr. Speaker, this government remains very committed not only to the automotive companies in particular, but to the auto parts sector, which has been a very difficult sector. We're anxious to protect and enhance just as many jobs as we can. And Mr. Speaker, over the years, this party and this government have indicated in many ways and have demonstrated in many ways their commitment to a strong and viable automotive industry in Canada. And I would say, Mr. Speaker, that it was not until it became clear that this government was going to speak strongly for all of the people of Ontario, particularly those in the automotive cities of Ontario. It was only then last week that the federal government, and indeed through their free trade negotiator, Mr. Reisman, it was only then that the tough line began to emerge. I think this government has already had a very positive impact on the situation.
Final supplementary.
You see how badly, Treasurer, you need to get some ministers who know what they're talking about on the Auto Pact into the House. My final supplementary for the Minister of Labour is this. He has been put on notice. He has been put on notice by the President of General Motors of Canada that 40,000 Canadian jobs are at risk. I wonder if he could tell us specifically, not the good intentions, but I wonder if he could tell us specifically if his ministry has started a training or retraining program for some of the workers. Has the Ministry of Industry put up an adjustment assistance program for the industry? Has any assistance program been put in place to help the adjustment in the broader auto pact sector? Have you ensured that there are any provisions built into the $95 million that were given to the Japanese companies to locate in Ontario that would provide the necessary protection?
Order.
Which one of those?
Order. Minister?
Now, Larry. Well, Mr. Speaker, I regret that my colleague, the Minister of Colleges, Universities and Skills Development, who has primary responsibility in this cabinet for training, that minister is in the city of Windsor today, doing making important announcements for my community, and that he's meeting with the president of the University of Windsor and the president of St. Clair College, trying to undo the damage that government did to the post-secondary community over so many years. I'm sure, Mr. Speaker, on his return tomorrow, that the Leader of the Opposition can ask the Minister of Skills Development about the training, and as well when my colleague, the Minister of Industry, returns, that he can ask him that. Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows the proper minister to put these questions to, and I would suggest he do so.
Is that right? The member for Scarborough Centre. Order. New question, the member for York South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have a question for the Treasurer. We need to find out why it's taken the government 3 months after the expiry of the last control order to get the government to make up its mind. We know there's been a running battle between the minister and his deputy. We know that. We know that that running battle has meant that the Premier has had to take the Minister of the Environment out of the game. We know that there is now a committee of bureaucrats who are dealing with this issue. We know that's why, for example, the Minister has been ducking question period and hasn't been here. What I'd like to ask the Treasurer, I'd like to ask the Treasurer this. I'd like to ask the Treasurer this very basic question.
Order. 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 I recessed a while ago because we were interrupting ourselves. I hope that doesn't occur again. Order. Member for York South.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask the Treasurer a very basic question, which I think we're entitled to have an answer to. I'd like to ask the Treasurer, can he give us the assurance? Can he give us the assurance that the control order, which is going to take place, is going to have a definite expiry date attached to it, with conditions relating to performance in terms of the reduction of pollution? And can he give us the assurance that the government of Ontario is going to directly be involved to protect the jobs of the workers who have contributed so much to the economy of this province?
Treasurer. Mr. Speaker, I think the Honourable Leader of the Third Party in his preamble was unworthy of him. While the Honourable Minister of the Environment was in the House answering questions yesterday, the Leader of the Third Party was out in the community doing goodness knows what, probably listening to soap operas or something like that. Now there's a worthy comment.
And now for the response.
Also, in response to his preamble, his intelligence is totally erroneous. He should be aware that discussions of this nature in the cabinet under Premier Peterson's leadership are full of understanding and discussions, that the facts are put forward in an unbiased way, and that we move with all of the deliberation that the taxpayers would desire in important matters of this type. That we are moving towards a solution in this matter, and I can assure you that when it comes forward, we would expect the enthusiastic support of all members of the House, whatever it may be.
Thing that was asked,
Supplementary.
Speaker, why watch a soap opera when you can come here every day and watch the real thing in action, watching the Treasurer try to answer these basic questions and give us a song and dance? You want a soap opera, Mr. Speaker? A soap opera of a government where the Deputy Minister and the Premier are doing an end run around the Minister, where the Minister has zero credibility with respect to the environment now because of what's taken place.
That was a question, Mr. Speaker. I would like to respond by saying the Minister of the Environment.
Order. I was just going to ask if the supplementary was on the soap opera. But
Well,
you have a supplementary?
Mr. Speaker, I have a question about the saga. As Bob turns. Now, I'd like to ask the Treasurer.
Turns color.
I'd like to ask the Treasurer to answer the question that I asked him before. And the question is simply this. Is there going to be a definite time attached to a new control order? And is the government going to be directly involved to protect the jobs of those workers who've contributed so much to the economy of Northern Ontario?
Treasurer.
Speaker, the Honourable Member is aware that the jobs we must protect in every way we possibly can. That we also want to establish credible bases for the environment which are going to be enforced. And in this connection, there is nobody in this House or in this province that doesn't have the highest respect for the Minister of the Environment. His credibility is excellent. There is not one of his predecessors who has done more for the environment in the history of that particular ministry, and I'm very proud to be associated with him. We want to protect the jobs, we want to clean up the environment, and if it requires the utilization of public funds in some way, in some program, new or old, then we are certainly giving that the careful consideration that obviously the difficult question merits.
Final supplementary, the member for Lake Nipigon.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. By way of a second supplementary, this is certainly no laughing matter, Treasurer. What we're simply asking is that you give consideration to put human needs ahead of bureaucratic convenience. Do you realize, Treasurer, the kind of anxiety, the kind of climate that the people of Terrace Bay and the 5 communities that are depending on the survival of Terrace Bay, you should realize the kind of dilemma and impasse that your government, because of its ability to govern, because of its inability to make up its mind in this affair, have placed the workers of Northern Ontario under. Will you make a commitment? Will you please give us a date and the contents of the control order so we can go on with the basic necessities of putting bread on the table? It's no laughing matter, Mr. Treasurer. You have the responsibility to give us a date and the contents of the control order so we can go on with our lives.
I acknowledge the concern expressed by the honourable member. He represents the concerns also of his constituents in Terrace Bay in an effective way, and that we don't think it's a laughing matter. Sometimes the honourable member's leader moves me to amusement, and I regret that. It happens. It's not possible for me, Mr. Speaker, to answer the honourable member's question in terms of any control order, in the involvement of public funds, and in what degree, or even a date. I simply say again that it's under active consideration. The pressure is on the minister and all of us in the government to come up with an effective solution, and I can assure the honourable member and all honourable members that we will, and we look forward to their support on that occasion.
New question, the member for York South.
It's 3 months after the expiry of the last order, and the Minister of the Environment has been taken off the case. Those are 2 things which we now know. Question to the Minister of Community and Social Services. The Minister will be aware of a press conference held this morning to discuss a report conducted for the Parliamentary Committee in Ottawa dealing with the relative quality of daycare being provided across Canada. The Minister will be aware of some very, I think, quite devastating results of a survey conducted by that report with respect to the quality of care being provided in many daycare centres in the country, and presumably in Ontario, and the fact that many daycare centres run for profit offer a standard of care which is simply not acceptable. I wonder if the Minister can comment on the report, make public all government inspection reports with respect to daycare centres in the province, and indicate, given this report, can he explain why his government is still so determined to see that for-profit centres get a handle on government money?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I met with the combined coalition group that were present at the press conference earlier this morning, and they shared that report with me. My understanding is that the report reflects the situation across Canada. It is not a direct reflection of the situation in Ontario. That is not to suggest that it perhaps isn't at least partially true in Ontario. However, I would remind the Honourable Leader that both non-profit centres and commercial centres are inspected in the same way by the same people and acquire the same kinds of licenses under the same sets of conditions. And that if, in fact, there is a difficulty in terms of quality with a commercial centre or a non-profit centre, the same action is taken. And so, therefore, there is no good reason to believe that, as a general rule, commercial centres do not have good quality and non-profit centres automatically do have good quality. There are good ones and problem ones in both.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the minister is making a statement that is completely and utterly at variance with the report which was released this morning. And he may choose to make that kind of a statement, and he may choose to believe it. But if he makes that kind of a statement, he ought to understand that when he does so, when he says that, he is saying something that is contradicted directly by the report. The report states very clearly, for example, global ratings of all centers. Very poor, non-profit, 2%, small profit, 6%, government, 0%. Poor, non-profit, 9%, small profit, 19%, chain, 15%. 15% even of chain centers are categorized not by the authors of the report, but by inspectors, presumably inspectors even in his own ministry. I repeat my question to the minister. Given that fact, the documentation with respect to poor homes clearly establishes that there are more poor homes operated on a for-profit basis, poor daycare centers operated on a for-profit basis, than is the case for non-profit centers or for municipal or government centers. Given that fact, I want to ask the minister a question. Why aren't the reports made public in Ontario as a matter of course, first of all? And second of all, why are you so determined to continue down the path of making the chain centers and the for-profit centers giving them a stake in the system and giving them even greater control over the system than they now have?
Mr. Speaker, by implication, and if I'm wrong, the honourable member can correct me, the suggestion is being made that commercial centres are change centres. That's not the fact in Ontario. 80% of the commercial centres in Ontario are operated by single operators. We don't have a lot of chains here. As a matter of fact, if you define a chain as an operator that has 5 or more centres, that represents 5% of the centres in the province of Ontario. So we don't have that particular problem. Secondly, with respect to the inspection reports, as I indicated a couple of minutes ago, Mr. Speaker, the same inspections by the same people, the same licensing procedure is done for both commercial and non-commercial centres. And that if, in fact, in either case, there are situations that have to be corrected, then that centre is given a conditional license which is posted. And as part of that conditional license, the changes that have to be made are listed, and that's posted as well. They then have 30 days to make the necessary corrections, whether it is commercial or non-commercial. The same rule applies.
Order. Supplementary.
I just want to make it clear. The minister again has misunderstood, and I want to just say to him that if you look at the survey establishes, on the basis of a number of basic criteria, enhancing child development, service to working parents, potential for providing broad family and community support, health and safety. Those are the tests that are applied. They do a survey across the board. There are more daycare centers in the province of Ontario than there are in other provinces. The minister will know that. And on the basis of that, 25% of the small profit daycare centers are described as being very poor or poor in quality. 1/4. 15% of the chains are described as being very poor or poor. 1/6. 1 out of every 6. The minister is responsible for those children that are in very poor and poor centers day by day on a daily basis. My question to the minister is, given your responsibility, how can you continue to keep the inspection reports private and not available to the public on a basic as-of-right basis? And why are you persisting in your strategy, not of toughening up the regulations, but indeed of loosening the regulations and saying, here's some money, guys, come and get it? The strategy doesn't make any sense. It flies in the face of common sense.
Mr. Speaker, I have just explained to the member that when an inspection report indicates that changes have to be made, that in fact that is posted. The second point I would make, and I made this to the member on the basis of a previous question, that if in fact a parent who uses that center or who wishes to use that center wants to be appraised of that inspection report, they can go to the center and get that information. It is not secret in the sense that you define it. We have talked earlier here, and I have since that discussion spoken to my officials about the possibility of a form of posting. We are investigating that now. It may very well happen. With respect to providing some financial assistance to the centers, I have said on numerous occasions that we are talking about protecting the existing spaces. We are not talking about expanding that sector of child care service. We are talking about the high percentage of spaces that are there now, and that we simply can't replace those spaces over a short period of time. Therefore, we have to be sure that they continue to be there. And we are not talking, and the member again repeats the term chain. We are not talking about chains dominating the market in southern Ontario. They don't. They only have 5% of it, and they're not going to get it.
Order. Order. New question, the member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the absence of the Premier and head of the Technology Council, my question will be to the Treasurer. While Kimberly-Clark languages for the lack of $20 million, the Technology Council's only major commitment thus far is, as my leader stated earlier, to the Exploracom project headed by the Premier's friend, Mr. Schwartz. My question, Mr. Speaker, to the Treasurer is, in view of continuing media speculation about the lack of success of private fundraising for this project, could the Treasurer inform the House what the status is of the Premier's proposed investment in this project, and indeed what the status is of the private sector fundraising endeavors undertaken by Mr. Schwartz in aid of his project?
The public financing for Exploracom will certainly depend upon the ability of Exploracom to raise the funds necessary to match and also to guarantee the continuing funding of the program in the future. That matter is under review.
Supplementary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We have contacted a number of companies in the computer field, including the 5 majors, Xerox, IBM, Northern Telecom, Bell, all of whom indicate they are not participating in the project. I wonder if the Premier could confirm that Mr. Schwartz has been...
The Premier cannot confirm.
No, you're quite right. He couldn't, Mr. Speaker. But I wonder if the Treasurer could confirm that Mr. Schwartz has in fact been informed that the province will be withdrawing its $17.5 million commitment.
Give it to Kimberly-Clark.
With an election looming, the government has realized this was a massive blunder. I wonder also if the Treasurer could inform the House that Mr. Schwartz has himself guaranteed a $3 million loan for this project, and whether he could indicate to the House whether it is Mr. Schwartz's intention to take legal action against the government for withdrawing the commitment.
It's a fact that the funding of Exploracom is not satisfactory from the government's point of view. That we feel that Exploracom cannot make up the commitments made originally, and it is not expected that the province will advance any money to Exploracom under those circumstances.
New question, the member for Oshawa.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Labour concerning the Nielsen raid on Cadbury Schweppes. Will you table for us in this House the information which you have gathered from your meetings with, I understand, Nielsen so far, and you are scheduling meetings with Cadbury? All of the details of that takeover proposal, will you table that information with us? And will you also provide us with the company's justification for closing the Whitby plant?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I don't have those details as yet. One of the aspects of this takeover, which the honourable member asked me about last week in this House, was whether this government would be getting involved with the federal authorities who have an opportunity to look at this. I'm given to understand, my office has been in contact with the Minister of Consumer and Corporate Affairs. I'm given to understand that there is a preliminary examination of this buyout underway, and I have, and Mr. Speaker, we are keeping in close contact with that. I met last Friday I met last Friday for about an hour and a half with senior officials of the Nielsen Company, and they explained the basis for their decisions. I expect to have meetings in the next short while with, or at least my office will, while I'm away from the House for minor surgery. I expect that my office will have meetings with both Cadbury and indeed with Local 222 of the CAW. And at that point, we'll be advising Cabinet as to what the next action, or if any, that the government ought to take.
Supplementary.
Can you explain to us why you have not yet registered your objections with the Competition Tribunal? For all intents and purposes, you are approving the takeover and the closure of the Whitby plant. Why can you not at least call for the inquiry by registering the objections of the province of Ontario?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we're not yet completed meetings. As I indicated to the honourable gentleman, as I indicated to the honourable gentleman in answer to his first question, the tribunal is already conducting a preliminary examination into this matter. The second stage of such would be a formal inquiry, and at that and certainly by that point, we'll be in a position as to whether this government ought to ask that a full inquiry look into the appropriateness of this matter. Certainly, it's a very unusual situation that a company has bought another and immediately announced its closure. And I understand from certainly from press reports and from hearing from the honourable gentleman and his colleague that there is a great deal of unhappiness in the area, as one might expect. Mr. Speaker, we're looking very carefully as to whether the situation that is developing is one which is in any way avoidable, and whether the company ought to be allowed to complete the purchase.
New question, the member for Sarnia.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Solicitor General. I'd like to ask the Solicitor General, in light of the fact that the government, over the course of the past year, has initiated a number of investigations by the Ontario Provincial Police, and these, for the Minister's information, include allegations of misconduct, drug and alcohol abuse at the Workers' Compensation Board Rehab Center in Downsview, the potential misuse of government funds by WIDA Systems, the potential misuse of government funds by LSI, and potential criminal charges to be laid as a result of the Vaughan land sale. Would the Minister inform the House as to when the Legislative Assembly members will be advised as to the outcome of those investigations, and will he table at the earliest opportunity those reports for the House to peruse?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I will be happy to give an update of the dates of a potential completion of those investigations. I believe that at the present moment, there are many of them are still ongoing, and as far as the availability, some of these are reports that can perhaps be made public, others cannot.
Supplementary.
Minister, as well, indicate the number of OPP officers involved in the investigations, the cost of those investigations, and also the personal investigations that were undertaken with respect to the Minister's own activities.
Minister.
I will take that as a question and refer to the officials for the appropriate answer. I would suggest that since some of those are still ongoing, it will be some time before those exact figures could be obtained for every one of the investigations that have been done. We'll do so.
New question, the member for Oakwood.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Housing, and it's regarding 400 Walmer Road, the condo conversion in metropolitan Toronto. Since, Mr. Speaker, tenants believe the Bill 11, the Rental Housing Protection Act, was passed by the legislature to give them security for at least 2 years, security in their homes for at least 2 years. And since the city of York Council has decided not to protect the 547 rental housing on Walmer Road and change into condominium, And since your ministry, Mr. Speaker, disagrees with that decision, and the Ministry of Municipal Affairs disagrees with that decision, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to investigate it? Are you going to find out whether the city has a right to that decision in respect to your Bill 11?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member have rather conclusive ways about how the Minister of Municipal Affairs agree about that case at Walmer Avenue. The honourable member knows that the case is now being appealed and it will be heard. So to say that we believe, Mr. Speaker, that Bill 11 is a very effective bill in protecting those rental stock. If the municipality feels that they could release those buildings that they felt could be protected, the process will take its course. And that case is now being appealed. So I can't understand when the honourable member is saying that the Minister of Municipal Affairs agree on that process.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister of Housing has, again, either not heard or misunderstood. I'm suggesting to you that both the Ministry of Housing and the Minister of Municipal Affairs disagrees with the decision that the City Council took. In other words, I would like to find out from you, since the decision is being appealed at the OMB, and since it is to the best interest of your government to protect Bill 11, are you going to provide those people who will be appearing before the OMB with intervenor funding so that the best possible case can be put forward to protect rental housing in this province, firstly? And secondly, once the OMB receives the decision, don't you realize that the decision is in your ball court because it could be appealed to Cabinet?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there is a process that is in place, and there are no application before me or anyone for intervenor funding. The OMB, I know, will hear the case and its merit and make its decision. If there are intervenor funds that those applicants need, I presume they can make their case. I can't make the decision whether or not they will get intervenor funding.
New question, the member for Kent Elgin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Through you, a question to the Minister of Agriculture. The Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers of Ontario, meeting today in their annual convention, are concerned that there are federal funds available for the seasonal housing program for farm workers. But these funds will be withdrawn by April the 1st if they're not matched by provincial money. And this past summer, the federal provincial farm employment program was very successful in providing Canadian workers to work on Ontario farms. The province of New Brunswick was particularly successful as a source of these farm workers. Could the minister announce or provide matching funds available prior to April 1st so that this program may be taken up before it runs out on April 1st?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I responded to a question very similar to that posed by a member of the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association at their convention starting the beginning of this week, and I indicated to them that the details of a federal-provincial agreement for seasonal housing are being finalized, and I am in the process of going to Cabinet in order to seek Cabinet approval. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get Cabinet approval within the next week or two, and after that, as I say, the final details for a federal-provincial agreement will have been worked out, and we should be in business.
New question, the member for Durham York.
Yes, to the same minister on the same issue. Once again, we are back into accusations of verbal promises. Now, the people from the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association indicate that they felt you had promised them funding for the 1986 season, this past season. Did you, in fact, make any promises to them during the 1986 season?
Minister?
No, Mr. Speaker, I can't recall making any promises because I knew full well that once the program had terminated, sometime in 86, I forget when it was, I knew that at that time I would be getting together with my federal counterpart to see if indeed a new program could be established. So I don't know why in the world I would ever say to the Ontario Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association that there would be a program in place when I didn't know whether my federal counterpart was going to agree to a federal-provincial program.
Supplementary.
Sure, the fruit and vegetables growers will read that answer with interest. In April of '86, the federal government allocated $400,000 for the seasonal program of '86. That was subsequently reduced to $200,000 because of your inactivity or your prompting. Now that offer is about to terminate. Why have you misled the fruit and vegetable growers during '86, and when will you have money available for '86?
Order. Order. I think in all fairness we should sort of reconsider what you stated, and I wonder if the member would withdraw that and change his wording. Right.
Well, maybe I should say that the information that
Order. I'm just asking the member. Would you withdraw that statement?
Well, if there's some problem with misled, I will withdraw that particular word. And say to ask the minister why his comments seem to be again completely out of phase with what the comments of the growers are, and when can they expect funding for the construction that was undertaken in 1986?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, whatever the member has to say really doesn't affect me too much, because he's famous for making those accusations, although he will not. He will not step outside the House and make allegations. Natural Fry is an example.
Order. 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 Once again, order. Now the minister has a response.
Mr. Speaker, I've listened to several allegations made by the honourable member. Natural Fry is an example. But for some reason, and for very obvious reasons, the member will not go outside the House and name me or name my deputy minister or name my assistant deputy minister or anyone out of the Premier's office. He will not name those people. And as I say, it's for very obvious reasons. So, you know, I don't worry too much about your accusations, but I will tell you that a lot of the programs by the previous administration came under the BUILD program. The BUILD program was terminated. The BUILD program was terminated by this government, and what we are doing about it is we are coming in with far better programs.
Order.
We are implementing far better programs.
Order. Order. The member for Nickel Belt would like your attention. Order. The member for Nickel Belt would like your attention so that he could ask a question.
Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Natural Resources. The Minister will know that his predecessor, the member from Cochrane South, to his credit, promised the creation of 155 new provincial parks. At this point, there are still 51 of those parks that have not been officially designated, despite the fact that in 1985, the Premier promised that by the end of that year, all of them would be officially designated. Could the Minister tell us why, aside from divisions within his own cabinet, those parks have not been designated?
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, that's quite an important question, and certainly I would like to share with all members the reasons that those parks have not been brought into regulation. When I first took over in the ministry, there seemed to have been some agreement on multiple use of parks, and it appeared that many of the parties had in fact agreed after sitting around the table that was a possibility that could be achieved. I'm sorry to say, Mr. Speaker, and to the honourable members, that when the new government took over, there were those parties that sort of withdrew from what had appeared to be a reasonable use, multiple use of parks. The fact that that happened has caused us to hold back on the regulation to try to get a commitment again from the various users of the park and all the parks across the province. And I guess it's very important to those people that generally have had historical uses of park areas to be given some sort of feeling that we in this government would look at the multiple use of parks, and that in fact that could be a reality if we were to bring the parties back together and have some unanimity in the use of parks. And don't you point your finger at me, because you're as big a cause of the problem as anyone else.
Order. Once again, I'd remind members that interjections are out of order. Supplementary.
Speaker, all the minister is really telling us is that he hasn't been able to make a decision. That whether or not there's people have different views or not, why do you not officially designate the parks so that the boundaries are set, and then have public hearings on what goes on within those parks? If you don't want to do that, why not assign it to the Parks Council so they can come up with a policy, since you don't seem to have the courage to do so?
Mr. Speaker, it isn't a matter of courage at all. It's putting the parks to the best possible use to the people of Ontario. Now, this government has done something that hasn't been done for a good long time in the province of Ontario, and that's agree with the federal government that we're going to have a new national park in the Bruce Peninsula. And I want to tell you, I take a great deal of pride in that, and we took the initiative, and we're going to do that, and that's to the benefit of all the people in this great province of ours to enjoy a wonderful new park.
Call it the Bradley Park. Maybe it'll disappear.
I'll just wait until then. No, we'll just wait. Order. Order. New question, the member for Durham York.
Yes, a question for the Minister of Agriculture. I regret that I have to keep answering these questions, but there is some very great difference between what the Minister is telling us and what farmers are telling us. On the natural fry issue, do you deny that phone calls were made to bankers at your request by people under your responsibility?
Minister?
I certainly do. I never requested any staff of mine in OMAF to make any phone calls to bankers.
Supplementary?
I find that absolutely incredible, because very clearly we have it in writing from several people that were at a meeting with you that those statements were in fact made. Prior to Christmas, you asked that we get evidence in writing. Now you have changed your story that it's now your letters, only letters signed by you, that we must have in writing. It would be very good if you would get your story straight on exactly what has happened and get them even slightly in tune with what the farmers are saying, and really admit that you led the growers astray and led them into far greater financial problems than they were already in, and now come across and pay them in full for their trouble.
Minister?
Mr. Speaker, I have to say that the only member that is mixed up is the member from Durham York, and he's been that way ever since they got to that side of the House. Now face the facts, Ross.
If not before.
Face the facts. Carry out your opposition duties in a responsible and dignified manner. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to tell the honorable member, Mr. Speaker, that I also have the minutes of every meeting that I held with the potato growers, with the potato board, with the processors, anyone connected with the potato industry. I have the minutes of the meeting, and I know exactly what it is that I said. You're the one that doesn't know anything about it.
New question, the new order.
Mr.
New
Speaker,
question,
my
the member for
question is
Ottawa
to the-
Centre.
Thank you. My question is to the Minister of the Labour. A year ago, I asked him to bring in legislation that would provide employment standards for domestic workers in this province that would govern hours of work and overtime and permit unionization. He assured me that we were going to have a change in regulation under his munificence and that I wouldn't have long to wait. What's happened to that promise?
Minister. Mr. Speaker, the matter is under active consideration.
Mr. Speaker, I wonder if the minister could elaborate about why what was proposed as a simple change to regulation has taken more than a year to produce an answer that tells us we have to wait some more.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the matter was subjected to a round of very comprehensive consultation with a number of organizations, and proposals have gone forward for discussion with my cabinet colleagues. And when those discussions are complete, the honourable member and the members of the legislature, members of the public will be aware of the decision of the government in this regard.
Time for oral questions has expired.